Welcome to the Biz Coach Show. In every episode, we share information and advice for small business owners, small business leaders, startups, and entrepreneurs preparing to launch their business. Our mission is to give entrepreneurs the edge they need to succeed. If you're in need of business coaching, head over to mybizcoaches.co and book your free coaching consultation today. The Biz Coach Show is presented by Eric Whitmoyer, the owner of My Biz Coaches, a business coach, serial entrepreneur, author, and speaker, as well as David Macon, a certified professional in talent development, growth expert, writer, and small business strategist. Well, Eric, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, David, and yourself?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for asking. Always good to hang out with you and talk business stuff, which is what the show is all about. And for those of you who don't know, Eric has been writing some articles recently on LinkedIn, and we're going to be talking about some of the content he's been posting. But if you're not following him already and you're interested in small business, own a small business, definitely encourage you to sign up for one or both of the newsletters that he puts out. The first one is Entrepreneur's Edge, which is through his personal LinkedIn profile. And then the Biz Coach Notes, which is associated with the business that he owns, which is My Biz Coaches. So definitely scan those QR codes. Feel free to pause it and sign up, and then come back and join us here for our conversation today. So Eric, earlier this week, you had posted something that I happened to see pop up on my LinkedIn feed, and thought we'd dive deeper into it. That was a really good topic, and both of us coming from a sales background, and I think kind of view sales as an art, a science, maybe a lost profession or profession that's misunderstood. But there's definitely some nobility to it when it's done correctly, and really it's the lifeblood of any organization, right? So I know we both feel strongly and passionately that sales is important and it's a worthwhile profession. And if I remember right, the exchange you had, you were reposting something you come across about the importance of everybody, looking at themselves as a salesperson. That's really kind of our topic for today, is everyone works in sales. And so maybe tell us a bit maybe about that post, if you would, and then kind of your viewpoint on why that's an important perspective for everybody, but especially small business owners.
Yeah, and you kind of said that, you kind of hit the nail on the head there at the end, is that especially for small business owners. I think that any organization, and David, again, I'll reference, as I often do, the 12 years we spent in our previous employer. I think it was on a percentage basis, I'm going to say that somewhere between 95 or 97% of the people in the organization had some kind of quota they were responsible to. We had a very lean operations staff who kind of kept the sales organization in check. That might have gone from 95 down to 93 or 92 after we got the integrity team and some of the other pieces in place. The commissions team, I think your wife was part of the commissions team and things like that. But the point is that when you have an organization where everybody not only recognizes that they play an integral part in the sales of promoting the sales of the business, right? Yeah. Even the people in the commission team, right? Understanding the plight of the salesperson, understanding why they might do what they do, right? Anybody who's in the operations team, our integrity team, right? I think that our integrity team was kind of our commission compliance group, if you want to call it that, ensuring that people weren't doing things that they shouldn't be doing. But even they got better when they took the time to understand what it was to be a salesperson. Yeah. And actually, some of them were in the sales side of the field and went to that group. And the value of that was significant because it helped them understand why salespeople do what they do. Right. So what's their motivation? What are their expectations? We had a very high level of expectation as far as achieving goals. And when we were falling short of that, what's the unintended consequences of pushing really hard on metrics and when the numbers aren't where they want to be, weaker managers have a tendency to kind of push in the wrong way. And what does that make salespeople do, particularly people who are maybe on the bubble of performance, right? There's a lot that goes into that. And quite honestly, in the post that you referenced, there was a gentleman by the name of Will Cannon. He's the founder and CEO of Uplead. And he listed out, I want to say it was like 18 different things that fall into the skill set of sales. And I shouldn't say that. So he said sales isn't a skill; it's a collection of all of these tools, these I guess skills, other skills, I guess. But copywriting, communication, active listening, psychology, persuasion, speaking, product knowledge, market research, right? Even lead generation, cold outreach, social media. All these different components really play a role in sales. And to his point, what he was suggesting was that to be good at sales, you have to have some understanding and some competency in all of those. Some more than others, right? Depending on the business, depending on the sales model, whatever. But sales process. But the reality is that you really have to understand all of those things. And you kind of mentioned it in the introduction. I don't know that sales is necessarily a lost art, but it is an underappreciated art or skill. I don't believe that there's a number of different nuances about sales. There's certain people that embrace the idea of, hey, I'm a salesperson. I want to be in sales. I want to get paid for my performance. There's a lot that goes into that psychology and association. And there's others that are, very not, they cannot embrace that concept. They're like, ooh, I don't want to do that. I can't do that. And those are the people that I really try and encourage as much as I can to get them to understand that if you at least understand sales and what we do and how we do what we do and why it's so important to make the business run, then they can play a much better support role to the sales organization, which is out there every day, right? We call sales as the vanguard, right?
Yep.
We're out in front. We're on the front lines making it happen every day as a sales organization. And those who are in sales are very proud of that. Sometimes a little too proud, but the reality is that if you're in a support role of somebody in the sales organization, whatever that role is, it's also very important. And there's a two-way street there, right? The salesperson has to respect the people on the operation side and recognize their role within the organization. And I think that when you have a healthy blend of the two is when you really find a synergy where the two work together cohesively. And that's what we were able to duplicate or generate, create, whatever you want to call it, when we were in a previous organization.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that's a really important concept for people to wrap their head around, is that everybody is in sales to one degree or another and has an active role in what that looks like.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, without sales, you don't have a business, right? And so I think what you're saying is everybody needs to understand not only, the role and the impact that the sales team has, but how their work group supports the mission of the sales team, right? Which ultimately fuels the business. And so I think that certainly makes a lot of sense to me. I think going maybe one step further, is it important for every person to have selling skills? Thinking about, if you've got somebody running, finance or accounting or bookkeeping or whatever inside of a, service-based business, does that person need to have selling skills? What do you think?
So, yes. And here's the way I would say that. First of all, you could not have a complete appreciation for what it takes to sell the business unless you had the skill.
Yeah.
Or at least if you tried to adapt the skill, right? Tried to understand and learn the skill. If you took the time to understand, like for instance, what's the TV show where they have the CEOs come in and do the job?
Undercover Boss.
Yeah, right. I mean, take an executive in any part of the business and have them be on the sales floor, and I guarantee you, 100% guarantee you, that person will come away with a new appreciation of what it takes to make the business run every day.
Yeah.
And I will also say that it is few and far between of the executives that would take the time to do that.
Right.
And
sure.
And the education you get, I mean, the reason that show is so impactful, put aside all the antics of video and TV or whatever, but all that aside, the reality is it's a great story when an executive of a company, I don't care what role they're in, if they're removed from the day-to-day activity, whether it's sales or not, that's not as important. The point is, when you take somebody who's in that space of the business and you put them in the day-to-day activity and you make them experience what I'm dealing with every day, if I'm the salesperson, and you see what I have to what I'm challenged with, what frustrations I have, what things I'm tripping over, what things are holding me up, impeding me from doing my job effectively, it completely changes the dynamic, right? Because now they come back and they're like, why don't we fix this? I'm like, that's a great question. I've been asking that for months. Why does nobody listen to me? But now this executive comes back with a completely different perspective, and they're like, we need to fix this tomorrow, right? So, and I think that's as much as it seems obvious, right, with all our busyness and everything else in most of our companies, that the reality is that most people don't do that. Most people in those roles don't or wouldn't do that. And it takes, in my eyes, it takes an enlightened individual to actually put themselves in that position. And I don't care what your business is, but when you have sales organizations, which more and more companies that have a big sales force are, they're recognizing, hey, look, let's just focus on what we're good at. And I mean, that's what we did at our previous company. We outsourced the stuff we weren't good at. We didn't want a big operations team, but we knew we needed to have some key people within the organization. I think we had one HR person because we had a PEO that we leveraged for our HR solution, right? But we had one HR person and for 1,500 employees, right? We didn't even have a tech team, but we didn't have IT in-house, despite having 140 locations with all kinds of tech resources. We outsourced that to an IT servicing company. So we focused on the things that we were good at, and what we were good at was driving sales results, and that made us that much better at that. All the more reason that everybody within that organization if they made the effort to understand what it took for us to do our jobs day in and day out, they could see the impediments, what was causing us to not be as good at our jobs, or not be as efficient, or not give the client the best experience, or whatever it was. They would be able to see it firsthand. And best of all, because they have the back end insight, they can now extrapolate from that experience and say, oh, we can fix it by doing this. We can fix this experience by doing that. We can make it easier for you to do this by doing this, because they know what they know about their departments. But by them coming forward and learning what we do and understand from a sales perspective what we were challenged with, or whatever it was, right? And that now they can come back and they have a different perspective, a different lens that they're looking through when they look at their jobs. And consequently, for what it's worth, it's a lot more challenging when you have 95 to 5% of operations and sales. But salespeople should see, what are these people's jobs? What is the commission? I can tell you very, very specifically, we had people that went from sales into commissions. And I remember afterwards, they'd be working with a commissions team, like somebody would be working with their wife or something. They're like, hey, now I understand why you used to get frustrated with us because of our contract.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I can't read this. This is hieroglyphics. I mean, like, this, it takes me 3 hours to process this transaction because I can't figure out this information. I have to make multiple phone calls to figure out what was done, But the idea is that everybody, they learn from one another. And I think that sales, because to your point earlier, sales is the engine that makes the business go. I mean, without revenue, really don't have a business, right?
Yeah.
So and so if we go a little bit deeper into that, as you mentioned earlier, about the fact that a smaller organization, even more so, right? Because in a lot of the smaller companies, let's say sub 10 million in revenue, if you have a sales team, it's not very big. It's a couple of people. In many cases, that couple of people is likely led by the CEO or the founder of the company or whatever title that they claim, president, whatever. But they could very well be the person that's running the sales organization and overseeing the sales operations. And that may or may not be an ideal fit, but the reality is that let's say the sales team is 3 people. There's probably 6 or 8 people in the entire company. And they all have to understand the role of the salesperson, because the reality is, in a company that small, 1 or 2 salespeople on vacation or not in the office, somebody's got to be able to field those conversations.
Sure.
Or do you wait until the salesperson comes back, right, to have that conversation?
Yeah. Right. They'll just move on to the next person, right? So
exactly.
Yeah. No, I think really good points. And I think maybe a slightly different, but I think equally important perspective on it is you want everybody in your organization to have some level of sales understanding and ability. And I think it manifests in ways that we don't often think about. So one might be, vendor negotiations, right? And being persuasive and advocating for the interests of the business. Or, with a small business in particular, right? You only have this many resources and you're trying to figure out the best way to expend them. Well, if you've got the sales team that's really persuasive and making a case for why they need the budget, they're always going to get the budget. But if you have other people that can make a strong argument and be persuasive, they may be able to bring new ideas to light with greater emphasis that allows you as the business owner to make better decisions as well, right? Instead of just whoever's got the slickest presentation, it sells me on the idea, they're going to get the budget, may or may not be the best interest of the organization. So I think that's something else as well, is people being able to, speak in a convincing, way, in a persuasive way is helpful. And as a business owner, right, also being able to maybe see through a little bit of that because you understand the sales process too. And when you're being sold versus, okay, yeah, I know I'm being sold, but what are the key points? Let me extract that out. And I think that can help too.
Yeah. And I think as you discuss, as you suggest that the idea, having a sales skill, again, the smaller organization, the reality is everybody plays a role in that. So for instance, another piece of this, let's say I'm the bookkeeper for a pest control company.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm out and about, I'm doing my daily thing, and I happen to engage with my neighbors, friends, whatever. And they suggest, oh, we've got a problem with Arizona scorpions. And we're a little frustrated about that. Well, even though I'm the bookkeeper, I hear that my antenna should immediately go up. I should be trained well enough to know that, hey, we have a solution that solves that. And if you're not happy or your current solution or you need a solution because you don't currently have one, then I should be able to say, you know what, we have a solution just for that. We have we have a particular service that we do that does this and resolves that and blah, blah, blah. But even as the bookkeeper, I should be able to promote our services. I should have some basic sales skills that gives them the information that they need so that they can go and potentially implement that, or use that and basically sell the service.
Right.
And I think that this, like I said, a smaller organization, really everybody plays a role like that. Yeah. It's not just the owner. It's not just the entrepreneur. It is everybody in the company, because at that point in the business, when you're that small, every sale means something, right? You can't really disregard, and I know I've told this story before, but years ago when I started Just Right Wireless, I had a wireless business that I started in between two of my professional ventures. And we'd had the store, the first store that we acquired, we'd had it for about a year, maybe just short of a year, maybe like 9 months or something like that. And it was Christmas time. And we have a bigger extended family. Everybody's all together at Christmas time, so we're all over at my dad's place. And both of my brothers work with me in the business. We all have full-time jobs and we're all taking turns in the stores, and we're, pulling our shifts and stuff like that. But, here we are at Christmas, and somebody in the extended family is bragging about the new phones that they just bought. And they buy them from you. And guess where they didn't buy them from? Right. Exactly. And I'm like, how is it that and at one point, so both my brothers, myself, my sister, we a number of us within the family all worked in the wireless industry. There's no way that anybody in my immediate family did not know that we had a wireless store. We were selling cell phones.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And oh, by the way, we sold most of all the carriers that were available in the Phoenix metro area. We even had Dish and DirecTV and all the other stuff too. So how did you not know that we had a store? And why would you not buy from us?
Right. Yeah.
But perfect example of, we weren't selling all the time. We weren't doing a good job of helping people understand that. And even though we were putting all that time, and this is a whole nother lesson, but this is where when you're doing too many things at once, this is what happens. This is the kind of things that happen. You don't get the effect that you should get, but that's a whole other show for another day. But not having everybody focused on driving the sales results of the organization when you're small like that, that's meaningful.
Yeah. No,
So,
totally.
Go ahead.
I would say that's the barbecue test, right? What is what I call it. But it's basically, when somebody's out at a barbecue and they get asked, "What do you do?" How well they answer that question is important, right? Especially in a small business. Are they, a billboard or referral source that's bringing business in your organization or not in those situations? And unfortunately, a lot of times it's not. So, kind of looking at that and do they have the swag? Do they have, shirts and gear and hats and things that promote your business, but also have you as the business owner sat down with your team, right, regardless of how big it is, and say, hey, when you talk about our business, these are the key points that are most important. These are the things that we should be promoting in those barbecue conversations or whatever the context is, right? Because a lot of times people, oh yeah, I do, accounts payable for the pest control company. Oh, okay. And then they move on versus, hey, I play a key role in contributing the finances of Phoenix's most successful pest control company, and we're taking on new clients in this area, right? Huge difference in how you talk about what you do, right? And I think that it's important for the business owner to understand that and to teach their people what they should say.
Yeah. So for instance, at My Biz Coaches, one of the first things we do with a client is we lead them through a series of key points that we want to address within their business. And one of the primary things is, and most people understand it as a USP or unique selling proposition. We call it your market dominating position. What is the thing that you do better than any of your competition that sets you apart from all of your competition, right? And to your point, when we go through the exercise that we go through and we help them uncover $100,000 or more in additional revenue, one of the biggest things that everybody always agrees to, like everybody agrees, that if we clarify, if we completely identify exactly who it is, what we do, and who we do it for, and we can say that in a very concise manner, right? So much so that I've got a 10-second elevator pitch and a 30 to 60-second commercial, that market dominating position can be dispelled down into 60, 30, and even 10-second increments. And I can share using the right words tied together to give an example of what we do. And the key is that can everybody in the organization do that?
Right.
And I say to the owner, I said, okay, can you demonstrate that? And most of the time the owner's like, maybe, but not exactly. I haven't completely thought it out, or I've tried it before, but it's not exactly perfect. Well, that's what the owner's saying.
Yeah.
You can imagine what the bookkeeper's saying.
Right.
Yeah. And
the office admin.
Yes, exactly. Right. And so how convoluted is that message when they're talking to a potential client? And the reality is we're always talking to potential clients.
Yeah.
Right. And so the opportunity presents itself when we can clearly identify exactly what it is and what we do for our people. So the fact that everybody in the organization should be in a sales role or sales mindset and adapt that concept is really impactful. And just helping them understand, to your point, having the owner sit down with them and say, okay, here's the 3 or 4 things that I want you to convey with anybody ever asked, and they know that you work for such and such a company. What role do you play in doing this? But more specifically, what does the company do? Right? You can say it in this way, and you get this down, and you get these 4 or 5 things out, and that's perfect, right?
Yeah.
Then what does that do for your organization's sales as a whole?
Yeah.
Right. If there's continuity and consistency with what you say amongst everybody in the group, how much will that increase your sales? And generally speaking, David, across the board, we cap it at 10%. We tell them we don't want it to have bigger than a 10% impact because we don't want to overstate the results that we can perform. But generally speaking, I'll have people say as much as 25 or 50% improvement in the business.
Yeah, I believe it because when people can say it clearly, concisely, enthusiastically, right? That anybody that touches that business directly or indirectly, it rubs off on them and it's memorable, right? Because there's not a lot of people that are that jazzed about pest control, going back to our example, right? And so when they encounter people that are, even if they're, in some minor role in that organization, they're not the business owner or whatever, but they can speak to it and they're excited about what that business does. It's memorable. And I remember there was, this was years ago, but I met somebody that worked in the aerospace industry. I'm not buying a plane anytime soon, know nothing about it. That's, totally different than what my realm is, right? But they were so excited about their company, and they manufactured wing skins. I don't even know what that is, but I was like, man, I don't know what your company's about, but I want to learn more because you're so excited about it and you can speak to it so well. And I think that's true for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And that's a great example, right? To your point, they were so excited about it. The enthusiasm would sell somebody.
Yep.
Even if I didn't have a need for it, I'd want to know more about what you're doing because I'm like, well, that's really interesting. Tell me more. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And in sales, that's the key. In sales, that's the whole thing is we lead with the enthusiasm because we were like, wow, that's really interesting. Tell me more. That's what you want somebody who is inherently interested in your services. You want them to say, that's interesting. Tell me more about how you do that for your clients.
Yeah, for sure.
So, cool. As we go back and we kind of look at that list of different skills that were referenced in that article that I responded to, the post, on LinkedIn that I responded to, and you think about all the different things that are included in that, all of those are exceptional skill sets that everybody would benefit from. Yeah. And they're and when you accumulate those and you bring those together and you really hone in on a sales skill, let me add one last piece. When you think about sales skills, the ability to communicate and convince people of your perspective. That's pretty much what sales is, right? To get people to take action, to communicate and get people to take action. That's what it comes down to. Agreed. And if that skill set in and of itself isn't valuable enough, right? That in itself would be pretty substantially valuable. But when you add in the fact that when you as you grow within an organization, as a company gets bigger, you need people within the organization. At least you want your core people that have grown with the company to take elevated roles within the organization. If you take the bookkeeper and you move them from bookkeeper to controller to eventually CFO somewhere down the road, and assume that they have the skill set that supports the role, which is a whole nother conversation, but all right. As they progress, if they're progressing professionally, if they're applying the skill set, if they're learning more and understanding more, if it was advantageous as a bookkeeper for them to have a basic understanding of sales and a core skill set there, it's astronomically more important in a CFO role. Yeah. Right. For sure. If that company is now doing $10 to $20 million a year and they're the CFO, they need to understand what goes into and if they have a really true understanding of what goes into driving the sales results of the organization, because they're part of the team that makes the quotas and goals for the next year. Right. Yep. They may not be the deciding factor, but they play a significant role in helping determine that in the budgeting process. Yeah. So if you don't have it in the beginning, developing that skill set will only improve your opportunities for growth as you move up through within even the same organization, let alone go to another organization. Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense, right? How are you going to forecast and budget effectively if you don't understand how the revenue is produced and the things that go into it, seasonally and even personnel, right? And all those sorts of things. So exactly. But cool. Well, hey, anything else you want to share on that topic before we wrap up? No, I think we beat it up pretty good. Nice. Okay. Well, hey, Eric, you talked about market dominating position. And so I'll just mention real quick that if you don't know what your market dominating position is, if your team doesn't know what your business's market dominating position is, encourage you, schedule some time with Eric or one of his coaches. Just scan the QR code, head over to his website, and schedule that free consultation. They'll walk you through. There's a 12-step process, and one of those is the market dominating position. And I think just that time alone is really valuable to kind of figure that out and then cascade that throughout your organization. So, anything else you'd share on that process, Eric? No, it's a great plug. I appreciate that. And I mean, the reality is at the end of the day, as I said earlier, most clients, when we go through this exercise, we really, kind of dig in and say, what kind of impact would this have in your business? Yep. By their own admission, right? I tell them they have to cap it at 10%, and they're telling me, no, it's got to be 25%. It's 50%. Sure. And, and when they're telling me that it's that impactful to the business, I'm like, okay, so would you agree this is the very first thing we need to focus on?
Yeah.
And they're like, absolutely. We need to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And so that becomes one of the first exercises we typically focus on that help us lead down that path. So by our own, our own client base that's telling us, no, this is worth more than 10%. And as far as the value return to the company, that's how impactful it is.
Awesome. Well, I love it. Good stuff. And just if you don't already subscribe and follow us, make sure you do. We have conversations like this every single week where we talk about things that impact small business and, of course, give you the edge you need to succeed. So we encourage you to subscribe, drop a comment in there if there's a question you want us to tackle. We love those. We haven't done a community Q&A in a while, Eric, so maybe we can source some questions from the audience, and we'd love to tackle those as well. And Eric, great hanging out with you, man.
Absolutely. Always, David.
Awesome. Hey, we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.
Thank you.